Welcome to iScreemZ. It's your host again, Limes. I'm here tonight with a man who is the very essence of what iScreem stands for. You know, we're all about independent cinema, independent filmmaking, and this guy embodies it all. He's an all-around sweetheart, and I'm telling you right now, when you watch these movies, this man is not going to be working on studio films anytime soon because he ain't going to want to. Nobody's putting him in a box. Nobody tells Joe what to do. And if you've seen Sister Tempest, you know what I'm talking about. Welcome to iScreemZ, Joe Badon. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you. Doing great. It's a real honor to be on the show. Thank you.
Amazing. And it's an honor to have you on here, buddy. I got to tell you, before we, kind of get into the interview here, I'm a fan. I love Sister Tempest because I told you I think it's fucking fantastic. It's got so many different elements it's just exciting, right? But I don't want to jump ahead of things. Let's go back to the beginning. Joe, you're in Louisiana now, right? Louisiana? Did you grow up in Louisiana?
Yeah, born and raised. Same city, never moved. Basically moved one time in my life from my hometown house to where me and my wife live.
Amazing.
So yeah, Slidell, Louisiana. It's like half an hour outside of New Orleans.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you spent your life there. So and New Orleans, Louisiana, just such a rich culture. Let's go back to kind of young Joe for a second. Sure. I always like to ask these questions. What were your inspirations growing up? What kind of things were you watching? What kind of things were you reading? What kind of things were you listening to?
Yeah, so, very young age, I was really into Star Wars. And by the way, that Star Wars cabinet, I really want that thing. I've been looking at it a lot. And I'm just like mainly a fan of the original. The original three are just amazing. For better or worse, they fucked up Hollywood for the rest of eternity, but it is what it is. So grew up on sci-fi, grew up on Twilight Zone, and just loved sci-fi growing up. And then that kind of was a gateway into horror, and then in high school really got into like Evil Dead 2 and Sam Raimi, became a big Sam Raimi fan.
Nice.
And that kind of was a gateway into stranger films, and so then you start watching things like Holy Mountain and the fringe cinema like Faces of Death, or in the exploitation movies, back in the day, and Roger Corman and shit like that. And then I became a pastor. I was a pastor for about 12 years.
Okay.
And and like got rid of all of those things. Like, I was in that kind of church where you burned your books and you burned your CDs and all of that sort of stuff. And so having done that, I kind of started watching more benign things, but I got into like 50s sci-fi, like the old B movies, like, Plan 9 from Outer Space and all that kind of level stuff. So I really got into those for a long time. And if you want to go back again, let me go backwards again. In high school, I really was into music. I still, everybody is, but was playing music. I played guitar, and like everybody, play guitar, bass, piano. Like everybody can fiddle on those things. So I had a band back in the day, and really got into like noise jazz and a lot of Japanese noise bands, and got into like jazz composers like John Zorn and Naked City and Mr. Bungle and stuff like that. And so I was really into like the weird shit, kind of weird movies, weird music, just weird anything I liked, and the weirder the better. So like the older I've gotten, the more, you've seen everything. So you're just trying to find things you've never seen before. So
Right.
And especially now with the internet, you can really dig and find shit that like, holy crap, like I didn't know this kind of weird shit existed. So and of course, I'm a big fan of like incredibly strange films and like that Facebook page. Of course, it was
Absolutely, yeah.
that kind of stuff. Carl over there is amazing.
Amazing
so,
guy.
Yeah, so great. Such a cool, beautiful, hearted man. But and then Alejandro Jodorowsky's like I'm a big fan of his stuff. And David Lynch and Quentin Dupois, and just like a lot of the absurdists and a lot of the surrealists. So that's kind of where I'm at, really loving absurdity and surrealism. And I'm
Okay.
sure I'll get bored with it and kind of want to move on to something different, but that's where I'm at right now, you know.
Now you've opened something interesting there because you say you were a pastor.
Yes.
Now you're looking at, say, for example, Sister Tempest.
Yeah.
There's I don't want to, I don't want to, it seems to me that there's a lot of your personal opinions from your journey in there, how maybe being a pastor shaped you.
Yeah.
When did you stop being a pastor?
About 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay.
So close to a decade at this point, which is wild. So, and when I did, I really had to take some time to deprogram out of all my programming, because it's basically a cult, like, most religions are, and so, and then kind of like with God Inside My Ear and Sister Tempest, they're me just wrestling with who God is and what the meaning of life is. And so it's just personal stories wrapped up in like absurdity,
Yeah. Yeah. When did you, and I'm going to come back to that, but I want to ask you this question first because it ties to it. When did you first realize you kind of wanted to be a filmmaker yourself? When did you realize you were enjoying what you were watching? You want to step behind the camera and put your visions out there?
I mean, I've always wanted to, but I was always scared to, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a big process. And so, in high school, I would shoot films with my friends, short films with my friends, and make up dumb shit together. And so I always wanted to, but I think like the getting into the ministry kind of derailed everything for me for a while.
Right.
And so getting out of that, I'd like turned 40 and I was like, well, I need to figure out some things that I want to do before I die. It was kind of like, oh, I'm entering the second half of my life. And so like I kind of creating this bucket list of things that I wanted to do before I just got too old or tired to do them. Yeah. And so, make a film was one. So I, with God Inside My Ear, I'd made it. And then after making it, I was like, I feel like I'm kind of good at this, or at least for myself. I wasn't embarrassed by it. I was like, oh, I feel like I know how to do this. And so then I was just like, let me keep trying. Maybe I can have some sort of strange career out of it. It might not be Hollywood, but maybe I can actually get to the place where I'm getting real funding, even if it's like 200,000 or $1 million, like lower budgets. But I think I can get there, So that's kind of the aim, not to become like a huge success, but to be where I can pay everyone for making the film. I can
for sure.
I can pay myself to like spend 6 months to make a film, stuff like that. So,
God Inside Your Ear, that was your first full-length feature that you did, right?
It was really the first thing I ever did, really.
Really?
I mean, besides just these little films I would make with my friends that really wasn't films. It was just like, the equivalent of cell phone camera, stupid stuff, So that was really the first thing I'd ever done. But before that, I had written and illustrated. I'm an illustrator. And so I'd written and illustrated comic books. And I had done storyboards for some bigger films, like not anything huge, but like a Key and Peele film and some like $1 million budget movies and commercials and stuff. So I had sat down with real directors and DPs and done their storyboards. So I was able to really figure out how to tell a story. So it was just the natural progression. Because comic books, I've heard it said like it's the poor man's filmmaking. And so I'd done comic books for like a decade. And so I knew how to tell a story visually,
So you're a pastor that's kind of changed direction. You get into filmmaking, you start fulfilling your dreams, and damn, you're good at it. Are there any voices from the past at this point when they see God Inside My Ear saying, Joe, what are you doing? And trying to sort of bring you back onto the path that they think you should be on?
I have as far as like in the church and stuff, there I have a couple friends that I still talk to that are, in that world. But most of the people just, they, like they don't talk to me. Like I am a reprobate is what what I would be called. I'm excommunicated from that world, but I still have friends that are Christians. I still have, like, after we left the church that I was a minister at, we went to another church, a vineyard in a town right next to me in Covington, a small town. And I'm still good friends with that pastor. That pastor's daughter did a song for God Inside My Ear. She sings, and I don't know if you've seen God Inside My Ear yet, but she sings in like a big weird sci-fi space outfit. And so but that guy, that pastor is amazing. He has actually interviewed me on his podcast, and I still consider myself a Christian, but by American conservative Christian standards, I'm the devil. So so
it's a hard subject for me, because I honestly think that there is a huge difference between spiritual belief and organized religion. You can
100%,
right
100%, yes.
If you believe, if you believe in a higher power, I'm of the opinion I don't need a go-between to talk. If he's listening, I can talk myself.
Yeah. Well,
so,
you don't even, and I, for me, I go even further. I believe that you don't have to believe anything and still be a spiritual person.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
Joe, I've wrestled with so many people on this, said that, like, Zach. So it's refreshing to hear you say that. Yes, absolutely. You can be a spiritual person and believe what you want to believe, and that's amazing. Now, a lot of you, this imagery that carries through into Sister Tempest. Let's talk about that, because this was your second feature, and it's getting great reviews. It's got amazing reviews. Everybody that watches this film loves it. It's for me, I saw it when I reached out to you, and I'm like, hey, I want to review this. Let me have it. And I was driving Uber at the time, and I'm sitting watching it in a parking lot in freezing snowy weather, and I was riveted. I'm like, it's got elements of Bill and Ted in there with the council. It's got Buffy. I blew my mind. Where did the ideas come from? Like, talk to me.
Well, I think my biggest influence, I've been saying this a lot, so some people might hear a broken record, but my biggest influence really comes from when I was playing music back in high school, and I really got into John Zorn. And he's a composer from the 80s and 90s, and he had this band called Naked City. And one thing that they did that I'd never heard before, and I'm sure maybe it's probably been done before, but I had never heard it before, was kind of a thing called like genre hopping. So like one of their more famous songs is a song called Speed Freaks. And in 1 minute, they do 30 different genres. And so like every 2 seconds, they change to a different genre. It's like country, it's death metal, it's hip hop, it's noise, it's jazz, and it's just boom, 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 boom. And so I kind of wanted to capture that on film, that same kind of insanity. And so the best way to do that is kind of create a multi-layered universe. And that's what I'm kind of fascinated with, is this multi-layered universe, not in the Marvel sort of sense, but in the sense that you can have all these different genres of movie, and they're all kind of stacked on top of each other, but they're all telling a narrative. They're all working, holding hands, telling a narrative. So when you get to the end, it may seem like chaos, but for some reason, there's this thin thread of narrative that goes through the entire story. And so I'm fascinated with that idea. I don't feel like it's been overdone in cinema. And so that's why I'm fascinated with it. I feel like I'm kind of going into uncharted waters in some ways, so I'm excited about that.
I know for a fact that obviously and we're going to talk a little bit about Blood of Dinosaurs in a second, because you've done this short that is I'm right in understanding that this is a prequel to your latest movie that you're working on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
So with you speaking about this kind of multi-layered, sort of narrative, is there a through line from the God Inside My Ear through Sister Tempest through to Blood of Dinosaurs, or is Blood of Dinosaurs and the new project, The Wheel of Heaven, are these their own entity? What's the
Every
deal?
yeah, I try to always create a new world, you know, but yeah, I'm sure like if I ever get like fans, like, or more fans than 5, I'm sure someone will create a conspiracy theory video where all of these kind of like lay out in some weird narrative. And it's maybe just because I'm really kind of a broken record. I'm basically telling the same story over and over. I'm not very original. So like I'm just kind of creating like, it's all kind of me wrestling with God over and over and over again. And so I'm just trying to figure out a different way to tell that over and over, over and over and over again. You know,
but that's okay though, right? I mean, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but to hear you say I'm not original, buddy, if I could come through that screen and like give you a slap, I would right now. Like I'm telling you, like I'm literally like I'm lining it up right now at the screen. Don't tell me that, right? Like,
I think it's more like, it's funny because all I'm trying to do is take all my favorite films and cherry pick my favorite moments and then create narratives around that. You know, it's kind of the Quentin Tarantino thing. And a lot of people seem to hate that. They hate that idea of just cherry picking ideas, but everybody fucking does it. Every filmmaker does it, but only certain ones like let it show. And then, but the thing is, I like to let it show. I like to have the influences on the sleeve because what happens is so many filmmakers or just creative people in general are so scared of being unoriginal that they try to hide all their influences. And what it ends up being, it's homogenizing your influences. And so I don't want to homogenize anything. If something's Godzilla, I want you to watch it and be like, oh, he's obviously just doing an homage to Godzilla. He's obviously just doing an homage to The Brain That Wouldn't Die, whatever movie it is. And I want people to be able to feel that because that's what makes it fun. It's like you're in a cinematic funhouse where something jumps out at you and you know it's Dracula. It's not the Wish version of Dracula. It's Dracula popping out at you. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to create, is like a mixtape, like a cinematic mixtape, essentially, you know.
But you're 100% right in what you said. You nailed it. Everybody does it. We're all inspired. Like Joe, I wrote a novel a couple of years back, Gallico, right? I can tell you that there's Chainsaw Massacre influence in there, and I'm proud of it. I can tell you that there's Howling influence in there, and I'm proud of it. I don't care. There's a different, there's no point when a creative person, in my opinion, can sit down and say, as you just said, that I'm going to forget that I saw Quatermass in the Pit. I'm going to forget that I saw Frankenstein. I'm going to forget all this cool stuff that's brought me to this place where I'm at now. And to me, it's arrogant to say that, you know, like there's a difference between being inspired and ripping off. These are two completely different things altogether.
Yeah. You know, and I want to add to that.
Go for it.
I think the important part is still having a personal heart to whatever you're telling, whatever story you're telling. And so that's important. That's the most important thing to me, is to really tell something from my heart, but use all of these different homages to basically tell something that's just from my heart, if that makes sense.
And it makes all the sense in the world. And I was really fucking impressed that you made action figures for Sister Tempest.
Well, I have a friend that's a sculptor, and he's just a wonderful, beautiful guy, Alex Raymond. And so I was like, hey, could you just sculpt me? He just started finally figuring out how to do like molds. And so I was like, could you sculpt me a couple of figures and then we can make molds? And he was like all about it. He made them in like 2 weeks, and it was just amazing. So, and then like me, I'm an illustrator and graphic designer, so I was able to put together the backer boards and everything. So it was just a fun thing. We didn't really make any money off of it. It was just fun. You
But
know.
it's part of the process. But like you said, it's part of the fun part. Because I mean, we talk about things that we were inspired by, right? And can I ask you how old you are, Joe? Am I allowed to do that? You're not
44.
44, right? So I just turned 50. So we're kind of in that same ballpark.
Yeah.
When we look back, what was one of the first things, it wasn't just Star Wars that inspired us. It was the going to the store and, oh my God, you can get Darth Vader. You can get C-3PO, right?
Yeah.
That was a big, and then they come to He-Man action figures. This is a big part of our childhood.
Well, Lucas like really started the merchandising bit,
Right.
because he like had it in his contract where he was able to keep all the rights to the merchandising. So that's why he's like has like $11 billion in the bank, because he made fucking toys. It's just amazing. And it's just that nostalgia. I want people to feel nostalgia when they watch my films, and but at the same time, I want it to be like highbrow and lowbrow.
Yep.
So I want all that nostalgia, like of, oh yeah, that's like Star Crash and Star Wars and all these really bad B movies that I love. But then I want all the artsy art house Godard influences and Hour of the Wolf influences and all these art house stuff, and I want to mix them together.
Yep.
So.
Oh, now you see, now you go talking about Star Crash. I love that movie. I love that movie as a kid. I mean, I'm a big Caroline Munro fan, but I don't know, something about that. Like, I wanted to watch all of the Star Wars, like the movies that came in and did you ever see the other, what was the one with the guy, Richard Keel from The Humanoid? Did you see that?
I was just going to say The Humanoids. Yeah, that movie's fantastic. That one fucking hairdo of that lady is like the best thing I've ever seen in my life. That movie is like fascinating to watch. It's so bad. I actually, this was like a year ago. I found the script for online. Somebody posted that screenplay for Humanoids.
Okay.
And it's interesting to read how like Fast and Dirty they wrote that script. How like Fast and Dirty Italian B-movie cinema was written back then. They were just, it was like the worst writing in the world, and they didn't give a shit. I love it.
I love it. It's you know what? It sticks in our mind, like it's amazing. You could talk about all these movies like Rocky and whatever, these great great movies that we've seen that and then you pull out something like Star Crash or The Human, and you're like, oh my God, yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah. Right. Shit. So
it's funny, some of those movies, they're so bad, but they've gotten Blu-ray releases, they've gotten like commentaries, and people are obsessed with it. There's something so wonderful about a bad film. I love it.
It's coming from the heart. If it's coming from the heart, it's coming from the heart, right? But so let's talk a little bit about, so tell us about Blood of Dinosaurs. I've seen the trailer, and it's dark. Like it's fucking dark.
It is kind of dark. So Blood of the Dinosaurs is basically like a prologue to the next short film, The Wheel of Heaven. And that's what we called it. Blood of the Dinosaurs, the prologue to The Wheel of Heaven. So you can watch both of these films separately, and they'll make sense. But if you put them together, there's like similar themes. There's a lot of like crossover. So you watch them together and they even make more sense. But Blood of the Dinosaurs is basically like a demented Mr. Rogers, and this character, whose name is Uncle Bobo, he's explaining to you where oil comes from, which is the blood of the dinosaurs. And so that's basically what the Blood of the Dinosaurs is about. It's kind of, where does oil come from, the origin of humans on this planet, and then it's also where do babies come from. So there's a lot of like baby imagery, there's a lot of like labor and delivery and sex all involved in that, and it's all wrapped up in a Mr. Rogers television children's show. So
are you out to destroy childhoods, Joe? Is that your secret agenda?
It's more disturbing than I expected, especially because the actor that plays Vincent Stalba, I hadn't written the character to be so creepy, but his performance is just so unbelievably creepy that it brings it to a like child predator level that we didn't even expect it to go.
Yeah.
So it's pretty creepy.
Listen, I got to pick up on that because I've only seen the trailer, but
Right.
yeah, he's got presence,
Oh,
serious presence, man.
oh my God. And it was, every take, he says those lines almost exactly the same. It's like he's a fucking robot. It's wild. So he's amazing. Such a great actor, such a great human being. Like, we've been staying in touch because he lives in LA. He flew down. He loved God Inside My Ear so much that he was like, I've got to be in your next project. We had already shot Sister Tempest, and then he loved Sister Tempest. So when I was ready to shoot Blood of the Dinosaurs, he was like, I've got to do something. And so, yeah, he flew down and stayed on my couch, and he just was into it, so it's a really cool guy.
Amazing. So so I guess that brings us, so this is a prequel to The Wheel of Heaven. Right. And that brings us to The Wheel of Heaven. Now, my understanding is that you're doing a Kickstarter for Wheel of Heaven. So before we talk about that, is Wheel of Heaven, is this feature length like Sister Tempest?
It's a short film. It'll be between 20 and 30 minutes long. But if we end up getting like really surpassing our goal, like we end up getting we end up getting like 50 or 60,000 or more, we'll probably just extend it to a feature length. If we definitely get a shitload, we'll definitely extend it to a feature length. So yeah, and I have it written out to where it can be feature if need be. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens. But the story is basically about this woman named Purity, and she breaks down on the side of the road, and it's very Rocky Horror, where she gets taken into this party, and she basically has this life-changing experience within this party. But it's all wrapped up inside of another woman who's reading a Choose Your Own Adventure novel called The Wheel of Heaven. And so she's making decisions for the character in the story. And so, and then there's like 2 or 3 other stories that all intertwine into all of that. So, but that's the main thread.
You know what? And I stopped myself there because I was just about to say, hey, so what genre would you class? I know it's going to be multi-genre. If it's you, it's going to be like crossing over there.
So if one genre is we're doing like a Twilight Zone, like black and white, the whole deal with very Twilight Zone music. And then one of the storylines is very old school Star Trek, 60s and 70s sci-fi. Okay. And then one of the storylines is very 60s, 70s psychedelic, very Beyond the Valley of Dolls, kind of Russ Myers kind of a thing. And then there's one storyline is very in reality, very shot in like a documentary style. And so you have all these different kind of genres, and each storyline is its own genre. So
okay. And now I'm going to be posting links to this because it's would I be right in saying it's Kickstarter is going to be the crowdfund platform of choice, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, you can either just go to Kickstarter and search for Wheel of Heaven, or you can go to wheelofheaven.com and that will bring you over to the Kickstarter page. So either way, or you go on Facebook and search for Wheel of Heaven and you can see all the links there as well.
Right. And legitimately, and I mean, I'm talking to the iScreemers and the fans out there right now, because this is what we're all about supporting. This is we need to, kind of get up off our butts and do this. Even if you can't support monetarily for whatever reason, share it, get the word out. I'm telling you right now, and Joe, I got to tell you, listen, I watched the video and I wasn't kidding. You made me spit pop all over my goddamn phone when I was watching it because it was such Andy Kaufman-esque humor. If anyone out there doesn't even take the time to go watch Joe's Kickstarter video, you don't know what you're missing, because I thought it was fucking hilarious. Best Kickstarter video I've seen.
Thank you. I was getting prepared to do to to create the Kickstarter page and make the video and write the script for the video and everything. So I watched Sister Tempest Kickstarter video, and I was checking out how I was using that as a template to do this Kickstarter. And I just hated that video so much. It's just like me and my editor, and we're like, hey, we're making a kooky movie. And if you can help us make this kooky movie, it's got vampires and Nazis. And it felt just so like straight-laced and stupid that I wanted to do the anti-Kickstarter video. And so I feel like I pulled it off. It's fucking hilarious. It really is.
You totally pulled it off. I come down the next morning. I'm in the kitchen. I'm getting ready to go like do my work, and I start pissing myself laughing. My wife's like, "What are you laughing?" I'm like, "Dude, you got to see Joe Badon's Kickstarter video." Like, I'm laughing at that. It just.
Well, that's the reaction. I want it to be where people share the video. Like, even if they don't like the Kickstarter, that video is so dumb that they're like, my friends and family have to watch this thing. So, and I've learned that if you can make people laugh, you can get money out of them.
100%. You know, like seriously, like people just want, and you know, and especially in these days now, I mean, what we've just been through with this pandemic and the lockdowns and everything, people just want to laugh again. People just want to have fun again. It's been too heavy, too long. We just want light again.
I will give somebody $1 if they make me laugh. 100%.
Agreed. Joe, you know, listen, I really enjoyed having you on the show. It's been fantastic. I come back anytime, but before we wrap this up, you talk to the audience there, and you tell them, you know, what you want to say about Wheel of Heaven and the Wheel of Heaven, and you know, the ways you think that they can help you with your Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, if you can just, like you said, if you can at least share it, you know, or like even $1 would be amazing, you know, to give towards this. And, you know, you're giving to like independent cinema. This is completely outside of Hollywood. That's why we're going to Kickstarter. When I wrote Sister Tempest, I knocked on every door I could, and I ended up having to go to Kickstarter to make that film, because Hollywood and anyone with money is too scared to give to a genreless art house film. And it used to not be that way. You used to be able to make films. Like, I just watched a movie called Playtime from the 60s. It's a French film. They built an entire city, like an entire city on a backlot, not a small town. They built an entire metropolis for this one film that's an absurdist film that has no storyline. You can't do that anymore. And that's what I want in cinema. I want people that are fucking ballsy, that are like, I don't give a fuck about making a Hollywood film. I want to make something that's come out of my nuts. And that's so if you want those kind of movies, then please share and support.
You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever you do, support Joe's nuts, for God's sake. Come on. Joe, absolute pleasure having you, buddy. You know, good luck with this Kickstarter. We're going to be watching very closely. We're going to be supporting, and you know, like, come back anytime and let's talk again. All right, I want updates. Okay.
Thank you. Honored to be on. Thank you, my brother.
Have a good night, sir.
You too.